President-elect Trump goes to Iowa tonight for the third rally on his thank you tour. He's also adding names to his administration. Mr. Trump tapped Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt to lead the Environmental Protection Agency. Pruitt is a climate change skeptic who has repeatedly sued the EPA.
Linda McMahon is Mr. Trump's choice to lead the Small Business Administration. McMahon and her husband Vince founded World Wrestling Entertainment, and they've donated $5 million to the Trump Foundation.
USA Today's Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page is with us. Welcome.
Hey, thanks. Great to
So what can we...
Just sit right down, Susan Page. Yeah.
Susan Page just parachuted in.
That's right, she did.
So what can we say about how this administration is shaping up, including this latest pick for the EPA?
Well, we have these mixed messages because Donald Trump has signaled in the interview with Time, in the interview he did with the New York Times, a more moderate stance, a willingness to change positions on some things like even climate change, meeting with Al Gore yesterday with Leonardo DiCaprio, who's been an activist on environmental issues. And yet his appointment of Scott Pruitt, the Oklahoma Attorney General, as head of the EPA indicates he plans to follow through on his campaign promises to really curtail the EPA, curtail some of these steps the Obama administration has taken on climate change.
Who Major Garrett said in his piece, it's like putting the arsonist in charge of the fire department.
Yes, exactly. Because even if
he was quoting someone else.
Yes,
he was quoting someone else.
Even if Donald Trump has said maybe there's some connectivity when it comes to climate change, Scott Pruitt has been a leader in the effort to roll back those EPA regulations on power plants on the promise to withdraw from the Paris Accord.
So what is it about? On the one hand, he sees Al Gore. On the other hand, he appoints Scott Pruitt to the EPA.
So I think Donald Trump is the least ideological president we've elected in modern times. He's not clearly a conservative Republican on issues including free market economics. But if he appoints to these key jobs people who have a clear agenda, a clear ideological agenda, they're the people who are going to be in charge of this day-to-day and things like education department with Betsy DeVos, or the EPA, or some of these other agencies where Tom Price at HHS would be another example. He clearly has ideas about changing Medicare that may not be Donald Trump's ideas,
but speaking
he's
of all
going to be in there
what's
every
interesting,
day.
is a notion that this conversations he's having with President Obama. What are they about? And he's consulting him on choices?
Isn't this interesting? Yeah. Because could an incoming president and outgoing president have had a more fraught relationship than these two? Donald Trump questioned his legitimacy of Barack Obama to be president, and yet now they clearly are building a relationship. And I think President Obama sees this as a way to perhaps persuade Donald Trump to preserve some parts of the legacy that Obama has built that now seem in peril.
CBS News is now reporting that Mitt Romney is the front runner for Secretary of State. I mean, there has been more back and forth, more talk about this position, I feel like, than any other cabinet pick. What are you hearing?
We know that Mitt Romney is in the mix. We know that David Petraeus has faded somewhat. I think Paula Broadwell's interview with you does David Petraeus no good in terms of trying to get a top job. Because it reminds everyone of what he did that led to his downfall. So I don't think that's helpful to him. We don't even hear Rudy Giuliani's name anymore in this mix. That doesn't mean Donald Trump can do what he wants, but Mitt Romney is a name that continues to persist. But the fact that Donald Trump has not yet named Mitt Romney is a sign he's not quite ready to go there.
Well, he's also the first president in modern times who hasn't had a news conference at this particular time in history. What does that say to you, Susan? Does it mean anything? He seems to find Twitter a very effective way to communicate.
Yeah, I think this is a president with his own distinctive way of communicating, and he says he'll have a news conference next week. We're looking forward to that. But this is not his form, and sadly, the First Amendment does not require presidents to have news conferences with reporters. That said, he communicates in these 140-character bursts. They have a huge effect.
It's a one-way conversation for the most part.
It's a one-way conversation.
There's no follow-up questions.
At that Harvard conference last week, his digital director said it's like owning the New York Times without the overhead to communicate on social media.
Wow.
Talk briefly about this notion of his sense about how things look and how a Secretary of State looks.
We know that this matters to Donald Trump, and that may be one reason he's turned to so many generals for top jobs, an unprecedented number of generals being considered for top jobs. He likes people who kind of look the part. He said that to his aides about Mitt Romney. He looks like a Secretary of State. So clearly, maybe it should be no surprise to us that a man who became to great prominence on TV, on The Apprentice,
and was
would
about
care
image
about
building.
this. Yes.
Yeah, optics matter to him.
Yeah, I think the phrase that Donald Trump has said is that Mitt Romney is right out of central casting.
You said that in our presence. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.